So welcome along to A Story to Tell with me, Richard Bovers, and this is mainly taken from my Radio Bath show every Thursday morning from 10 until 12. If you do like it, don't forget to subscribe, share it to others, and let everyone know all about Radio Bath. Hope you enjoy it. Good morning, everybody. It's Richard Boverson here, and I can officially say Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
So it's 10 o'clock on the 1st of January 2026. Blimey. Right, how was your New Year's celebration, Dr. Ashish?
Fantastic.
What did you do?
Well, I was surrounded by kids and family and celebrations.
Excellent job, Smithers. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. We are not here on New Year's Day, are we?
No, but I'm imagining it. So.
I'm imagining it too. No, we're before Christmas, and but we've got a fantastic show lined up for you. Dr. Ashish is a regular guest of mine. I'm even going to call you a regular guest now.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay. And he's been in many times before. We've spoken about breathing and sleeping and stress. What's today all about?
Today is all about revolutionary relationships.
Okay, now I'm going to do your Desert Island Discs introduction. Okay, because I like doing this from time to time. Okay, so here we go. Every now and then, a guest returns who feels less like an interview and more like welcoming back an old friend. And today, for the third time, we're joined by someone who's made it his mission to help us understand ourselves and each other a little better. He's here to talk about revolutionary relationships, how we connect, how we communicate, and how the science of our brains shapes the way we show up with the people around us. Back with new insights and that trademark calm wisdom, it's Dr. Ashish.
Wow! I love that.
Always makes me chuckle, all these little things I write. They really do. First question I've got for you is, how are you?
I'm feeling slightly daunted by our conversation today, and yet this is powerful work, so I'm up for it. But I'm on the edge of my skills.
Why are you feeling daunted then? Because you are normally, and when you've come in today, I've felt a different aura about you.
All right.
You are normally incredibly calm.
Yeah.
You've done your breathing exercises, which no doubt we'll talk about again at some point. But today, as you say, you feel a little bit edgy.
Yeah, so thanks for the invitation to recenter. I'm actually going to breathe and recenter myself. It struck me the potency of relationships and the strong desire I have to help us bring out our best. It comes out like a cliche in some ways, and yet it's meaningful to me. And the quality of our relationships I see in my work as a GP and in daily life and listening to the news, I think could be transformational for us, individually and as a species.
Now, very quickly, for those that haven't heard of you before or heard any of your interviews, you can catch up on all of them, by the way. Just type in Radio Bath to any podcast provider. Please remind us who Dr. Ashish Bhatia is.
Dr. Ashish Bhatia is a very humble being. Humble means I'm willing to learn and show up with you guys, with my humanity, and being perfectly mistaken. I also work as a GP, which means gentle presence to me. I endeavour to show up, and I love it. I also teach in medical schools and to health professionals, so aspects of health education, and now I'm starting to reach out and teaching, for example, fire service and other organisations, these little skills where you combine a bit of science, some simple skills and a bit of support to transform your life.
Amazing. And I generally always look forward to meeting you again. It's now, we haven't done yet, and we will do at some point, just so you are aware. We are going to see each other outside of the radio station. I'd love to hang out with you. And I can't wait to do it. My diary at the moment is getting more and more crazy by the second. It really is.
Yeah. Big learning in this last week for me is that redundancy is not redundant.
Okay.
Actually having empty spaces where nothing happens is really, really important. And the benefits are disproportionate. So this is my big thing for 2026, is to make sure I celebrate and book in emptiness.
Some time in your diary.
And then spontaneous friendships can fill that space, but that empty space is not empty. It's really, really important.
I still go down the route of I've got to put this in the right way, in that I think about you most days in a positive way and not in a weird sort of way. I'd like to point that out as well. But in regards to trying to make sure that I look after myself before I look after others, because a lot of people rely on me as their shoulder to cry on, or some advice, or sometimes some wisdom, whether that's misplaced or not is another matter. But I realise that if I'm not looking after myself and in a good place myself, how am I going to help others? So, like, sometimes I will force myself, whilst in the middle of working, just to go and lay on the bed and just relax for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, and it is, the then sense of self becomes rather flexible. You then realise that by nurturing whatever you call yourself is, you are nurturing others, like the hub of a wheel. And we're going to be talking quite a bit about centering. But this is not new. Like Aesop said, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is wasted, especially to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that nice? Now, we're going to talk very quickly about lip balms.
Cool.
Okay, we're going to talk about revolutionary relationships as we go through, but I thought this was quite an interesting thing for me. Now, back in the day when I used to be a salesperson, I had something said to me that always struck really well, and that is something that can mean very little to you can mean a huge amount to somebody else. So for me, as I was going round, I might have a pen that I could give away, and I had a box of them in the car. They meant nothing to me. They'd been given to me free by the company, and I could just hand them out to anybody. For somebody receiving that pen, though, it meant an enormous amount. It meant that I cared about them, and that I felt they were deemed worthy to receive a pen from Richard Beauvoisin. But it meant nothing to me. Now, when am I going to lip balms? One of my favourite things is lip balms. I love lip balms. I love getting them, and I've said to my lovely wife Zoe for Christmas, which I know now is in the past, but hopefully I will have received this present, and I am a nightmare to buy for. I'm fully aware of that I'd like some lip balms. And she turned round to me in a message. She went, "If that's one of your favourite presents, you need to get out more." But to me, I'd much rather that than buying a new Apple Mac.
Yeah.
The lip balms, even though it's £10 worth.
Yeah.
Get the excitement of getting those 5 different flavours possibly. And,
yes.
The smells of it, just, invigorating. But that is, for me, understanding a relationship.
Yeah, so you've actually described something that's been used in multiple different languages, something called your love language, where each of us have different ways or channels through which we can share, communicate, so send out and receive love. And they actually described 5 love languages. I kind of think there might be more there, but there's some sense of sort of material possessions and something that's meaningful. There's touch and direct communication. There's language and words of affirmation. There's also acts of duty and service, and then there's quality time. And it's really useful to know your spouse's love language and yours.
Absolutely.
And to develop an ability to feel and receive love when it's given by others. And if we can, we actually develop this internal affirmation that works for something called the Gottman ratio. So I'll come on to that in a minute. But first of all, can I ask you? So you mentioned that receipt of a gift where some thought has gone into it, but it recognises that this has some direct tactile meaning to you is a powerful love language.
Yeah, so regarding my love languages, I've done it a number of times just to remind myself, because I often forget which ones are important to me or which ones, and I've done it for my children and also for my wife Zoe as well. Gifts are literally 0% for me.
Okie dokie.
I just don't like receiving them particularly. I enjoy giving them. But this for me is somebody giving their time, and going, right, what's the right one? And that's the bit that is for me. And respect, the words of affirmation, that's the other one for me.
So by knowing your love language, you can actually use that skill, that strength, to strengthen the other love languages. So that quality time is really important to you. So if someone chooses a gift for you, you could actually think, okay, they've put in that bit of time to present that and think about what I might like to bring the gift. And I found that's helped me receive love, and my love tank stays topped up.
So I'm going to ask you the question, which I very rarely ask actually, for yourself, but Do you know what your love languages are?
I'm spread. I'm a big love junkie, so I could pretty much take it in any format. I know mine by default is quality time.
Yeah.
So that sense of, I don't call myself a gentle presence for nothing. That ability to just be together really matters to me, and I've translated that into touch. So I'm skilled in massage, and I've translated it into words of affirmation, so by exploring language and actively listening to the language someone uses, so they feel heard. The one I've needed to work on was gifts as well. And so now when someone receives a gift, I practice receiving it with the maximum amount of grace I can.
Well done, you.
And then work out what on earth am I going to do with it afterwards.
Honestly,
Timing.
the weird thing for me is that I know that I'm terrible at receiving gifts because I am a nightmare to buy for. Everybody tells me. And the reason being, I don't really want anything. It's not because I'm a millionaire, but that's not what I treasure. You know, I get stuff which I require. You know, if I need a new pair of football socks, for instance, I just get a new pair of football socks, and that's fine. But yeah, I have to work on it myself. We're going to have a little break for music. We're going to play All Together Now. Why are we playing this track? Dr. Ashish Bhatia.
Well, the big theme I'm hoping to share in our conversation is one of hope.
Back for part two, then it's Richard Boson here until midday today with Dr. Ashish Bhatia. He's part of Humble. And we're going to now talk all about revolutionary relationships. So the question I have for you very first is, what is revolutionary relationships? Dr. Ashish.
Well, revolutionary relationships is an audacious way of describing how we can develop skills and nurture our relationships that will help bring out our best, so nurture our beauty and potential. Relationships are not new. We're all relating all of the time, and a relationship is one of those paradoxical things where you have some kind of connection between separated yet united entities. So here I am sitting alongside you, Richard, in this studio. There's me, there's you, there's we in this space, in this system, and we're separate from each other in some way. We're independent beings, and yet we're related, we're connected in this relationship. So we've got this dance going on.
Okay.
And this exists for all of us all of the time. And many of us localise ourselves within our skin, you know, and say, this is me. And it is, at the same time, our relationships are an entity in themselves. And they, if we can feel them, we can nurture them like we would a living thing. And they themselves can blossom. The quality of our relationships have a profound impact on our experience of life and also our health and our performance. Where in my GP work, I talk to a lot of people who are dying. I prefer that word to end of life because life goes on through us. I hope it's okay to say that publicly. But dying is a process that we go through, and we leave ripples behind after us. And I ask people, you know, about their lives, and I listen to them. And the one thing they tell me is, you know what? The things that mattered to me most weren't, did I put that extra hour in at work? Did I earn that? Did I have that car? It's the quality of my relationships. And when I hear stories about things that matter to people, it's how the sparkle shines and bounces off each other.
I do remember many years ago having a chat with my dad, and hopefully he won't mind me telling the story. And if he does, then it's too late anyway. And he was not doing things because it would upset his wife at the time. And I turned round to him and said, when you were laying there on your deathbed, are you going to say to yourself, well, I'm glad I didn't go out for that walk with my son because she didn't want me to? And in the end, he actually turned around and went, do you know what? I do want to do these things, and I want to make these relationships flourish, even though it might upset his wife at the time. And, you know, he now looks back, not wife now, I'd like to point out, and saying he did the right thing by trying to develop better relationships with other people.
Yeah. So there was you relating with your father relating with his current wife. There was such a nuanced dynamic going on there. And this is the other powerful thing, is these relationships transcend time in some way. There is a sense of that relationship operating in us now.
Yeah.
And we have access to that. And we can revolutionise it. So the word revolve has the word evolve in it. We can transform these, and the benefits are profound. I see people's life trajectories change through their identity changing, and through their behaviours changing, and through their systems changing. And this isn't me, I'm quoting someone else, but we can rise to the level of our aspirations when we can rest on the level of our systems. And if our systems are naturally nourishing us in the form of relationships, which includes conflict, which includes those tender conversations, we can achieve. One is just life has a sparkle to it, has some vitality to it, and also we may surprise ourselves with what we could achieve.
Now, we have just gone into 2026.
Yes.
And you know, everybody does their classic New Year's resolutions, and I'm going to do all these different things. Yeah. Regarding relationships, what would be kind of like your top thing that you'd say, try and work on this right now?
Well, the easiest thing is to pause and breathe. I've said that at the start. And that's because it is totally manageable. It's easy, it's appealing, it's supported, and it's authentically yours. If you can pause and breathe through your nose, you know, at least once a day, you've set up some space in yourself so you can respond rather than react.
Now, I knew at some point we were going here. We're going here right now. Okay. It's time to pause and breathe.
Right. No,
and I still do this. And I had, very recently, I had to do quite a difficult conversation with somebody. And I was very anxious about it. And I did pause and breathe. And I was like, I could have done it at one point. I was like, I'm not ready. I'm mentally not ready to have this conversation just yet. I paused and breathed, and I actually, you know, did this technique which we're just about to do now. And I did the conversation, and actually, I didn't, you know, it was an honest conversation I was having with somebody. It went very well. But I know if I hadn't have done this technique, it wouldn't have gone anywhere near as well. So, Dr. Ashish, can you take us through some pausing and some breathing, please?
Yeah, well, to set the context, this is an ability to centre yourself and to come into a sense of peace and allow your brain chemistry to shift by releasing some chemicals like GABA and nitric oxide. So what you're trying to do is show up with yourself, being here and now with the sensations. If we do it for 3 breaths, that's all it takes. So gently breathing out and pausing. And then when you're ready, breathing in through your nose, halfway filling up your chest. And then even deeper. And then right to the top. And pause for 3, 2, 1, and then release. Slowly. How easy can you do that? Then the next breath, if it feels okay and it's safe, eyes closed, breathing in through the nose, 1. Even deeper, 2. Right to the top, 3. And pause. 3, 2, 1, and release. Slowly, and pause for 3, 2, 1. And the last breath, just tuning into your own body rhythms, nice and gently. Have a go. And a little wiggle. Tune into how you're feeling now. And I'll give you a high five. And that little high five that we gave just locks it in. And it's just a little timestamp like you would with dolphin training. Now, why this for relationships? And this is because if we practice before the performance, we're then ready. If you have the ability to recenter, you can then revolve around that center with that as a reference place. It also allows you to transition between different states of consciousness more easily, so things tend to flow, and it allows creativity and new ways of seeing things to happen. Our ability to respond becomes enhanced.
And I know for a lot of people, pausing certainly if they're in a relationship and there's conflict, for instance, that's incredibly powerful. Why is it so powerful?
Well, conflict is hardwired in us. We are designed to respond to challenge in different ways, and we have parts of our brain called the ventrolateral medulla that if we were to stick an electrode in, it would switch on different states of conflict and different responses. So these are all hardwired in us as adaptive features. So conflict is good. It's about how we channel it at the right time in the right responsivity, and it can be like a tango. Suddenly you've got something to push against and to dance with. You've also got feedback where you can take stock and adjust where you go. But you've also got the spark and fun in life, but also the tears and challenge. And without conflict, we wouldn't evolve. We wouldn't transform. And so it's totally necessary. Underlying the conflict, one does need some empathy and some rapport. And so having a balance, and I think in our previous talks we spoke about something called a negativity bias, whereas as evolved beings, we have a tendency to, when we see things, anticipate threat rather than support. So if you saw a shadow moving in the bushes, you'd think it was a tiger before you thought it was a pussycat. Hence, having the ability to recalibrate and balance things that might seem threatening with the context of that trust in the trust bank is really important. And that's where empathy evolved. I could go into that direction if that's useful.
We'll do that after the break, because I want to talk very quickly about something else. Going back to conflict, I know in my world, I want to avoid it like the plague. It's not something which I particularly enjoy, so quite often it'll make me make some weird decisions in that to avoid conflict, I won't necessarily lie, but I might not tell what needs to be said to avoid the conflict. But naturally, what always happens, and it's without fail always happened, it comes back and bites me in the bottom. Yeah,
and virtually every challenge I come across is a sweaty conversation that could have happened some time prior, that then mounted up for that individual or that system. And you could see it like energy that needs to flow and revolve, and if it gets stuck is when we get into mischief. So as well as being able to avoid, we need to be able to follow, we need to be able to fight, we need to be able to flee, and we need to be able to find. And these are the different parts of the brain that we actually have access to, and if we can switch between them at different times, we can nurture those different skills.
And just very quickly, because we haven't mentioned it yet, this is something that your organisation offers, isn't it?
Yeah, so Humble, if you need to get in touch with us, it's www.humble.info. We teach different skills in revolutionary relationships, enabling empathy, channeling conflict and cultivating calm. I've worked with medical professionals in other organisations, even going to schools, and this is powerful, life-changing work.
It's amazing. Now it's time for some music. Creek is Beautiful is your next track. Why this one then?
Well, I was...
Creek is beautiful!
Time for part 3, then it's Richard Boveson here with Dr. Ashish. Happy New Year to you all. It is the 1st of January 2026. Hope your hangover's not too bad. We're talking about revolutionary relationships today, how to be around everybody else, basically. And we're kind of going to centre now on a word which I've had to learn. Not learn how to say it, but learn the essence of it, and that is empathy. So, first of all, what is empathy?
So empathy is an evolved series of characteristics within us. It's a quality, and it's very subjective. So you were describing lip balm and how it could be interpreted differently. There's some statistics that show that our ability to interpret what someone else is feeling has an accuracy rate of around 40% if we know them as well as our spouse.
Right.
But it's down to about 10% for people we've not met before. So many of us think we really know what's going on inside someone else's box, but actually it's a mystery. It's a wonderful mystery.
So 90% of the time we're wrong.
Yeah, that's hence humble.
Yeah.
And yet we're still able to navigate life, and we need to be able to do it. And much of this is happening pre-consciously. And if I could humblify it, empathy is just one milestone in this evolutionary process. So it's all right to get a little bit geeky.
Go ahead.
So if I say that we've evolved from beings that didn't have quite as complex nervous systems as us, at the most sort of basic level, we have alertness in the bottom part of our brain. So if you were to think about the base of your brain, you've got your reticular activating system, and that is simply about alertness and attention to your environment. And if we're too alert or not alert enough, we won't be able to cascade onto the other skills we need. And so alertness, number one, reticular activating system, we need it switched on. Okay. And then evolved from that, which is sort of the amoeba level, there are more complex nervous systems come up. We then have evolved through an ability to sympathise. And sympathy means the same. So if I was to stomp my finger or bang it with a hammer, you would kind of go, ooh, inside yourself. Or, you see someone cracked in the nuts in playing football. You kind of, even if you're female, you'll bend over because you could feel it would hurt. So we've got this ability to sympathise. So I'll just do an example with you now.
Okay.
You can just see this crawling thing crawling on the top of my head.
So for the benefit of the tape, Dr. Ashish is currently drifting his hand from his shoulder around the back of his neck, all across his head, like a spider would be crawling, effectively.
Yeah, and your description has now made some people dust off their shoulders over the radio. So empathy is not just... sympathy is not just verbal, it's not just visual, it's verbal and conceptual. And we pick it up on the pheromone level as well.
Okay.
And that's why through social media and things like that, we're missing that little gap. But if we're not able to sympathise with someone, we find it hard to feel what the other person's feeling. But this is still on a lower level than our conscious thought.
Okay.
So we kind of react at this level. Then the next level up is one where we have a bit more space, but it takes a bit more processing. And that's where empathy comes in. And the fancy term is the theory of mind, is where you could actually picture the world from someone else's view. So a good example would be, can you imagine what I'm seeing right now?
So currently he's covering his face with his hands. So my imagination is that he can see his hands, including a ring, or one side of the ring, I should say.
So you could have theory of mind and see almost my hands.
Yeah.
Because you've got that ability in your conscious system.
I have.
And now if I do this,
hi!
and that's why we play peepo with kids. So by me opening my hands and hiding away again, we have the ability to practice this skill of empathy.
Okay.
So that's why peepo is such a fun game to play with kids.
I still enjoyed it then, if I'm honest with you.
And it's kind of, you don't know what face you're going to get, and that's why you pull different faces.
Yeah.
So reading faces is another aspect of that too. And then the next level up is it comes to an ability to self-regulate, to reference it to ourselves. So our default mode network switches on, where we sort of say, okay, so what does this mean to me and how the other person sees me? So we start becoming more socially interactive when that bit switches on. So we've gone from sort of engaging to mirroring to projecting. And next is about sort of adapting our response and seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
And the default mode network sort of says, am I safe? So a good example would be if you saw me, a blood being taken from my arm, for example, you might sort of wince a little bit. Now, most people in the normal population, if they see that, would wince and pull away and just check their arm's okay. But interestingly, healthcare professionals are neurodiverse. They actually are predisposed to self-regulate and reduce their own self-preservation when they see something like that happen to someone else, they're pre-selected for compassion, which is supposedly called intelligent kindness.
Okay.
But the problem is, if it's amplified, which it can do in certain environments, it becomes a firm self-neglecting. And you mentioned how you realised caring for yourself was really important. It takes deliberate effort to do it.
Yeah.
When you're a compassionate person, like you have to be on the radio. And so building in ways of looking after ourselves is really important. And then the next bit is, if you're too compassionate or too controlling, you can then become a bit Machiavellian.
What does that mean?
Machiavellian is where you think you can control the entire universe and someone else's experience.
Right.
And that's why so many doctors burn out in medicine, I anticipate, is because they believe they can completely prevent suffering in someone else.
And then quickly realise that you're still one person.
Yeah. And so if they can't modulate that with the pauses, with the ability to switch on GABA and to release and relinquish that sense of omnipotence,
Please explain that word.
Omnipotence means ability to control everything.
Thank you.
So that surrender is absolutely vital in our evolution of empathy, and going from alertness, sympathy, empathy, compassion, and humility.
Now, empathy, is it something that can be learnt? And the reason I say this is that I've mentioned many times about the fact that I'm autistic. I'm looking whether ADHD as well, but that's a different thing altogether. And I do the classic thing of, I often use humour to, so I found out yesterday that somebody I know had passed away, which is a very sad thing. But the person that had told me said that we lost X this morning. And in my head, my immediate response to that is, where did you lose them?
Yes.
How careless of you?
Yes.
And all of that. But, I actually said, oh, that's a sad thing. I'm really sorry to hear that news, and my thoughts are with you, which is the empathetic thing to say. In my head, I'm having a little chuckle to myself about the joke that I've said.
Yeah.
Which way is kind of, I suppose, right or wrong, or where is it?
Well, the fact that you can notice this is really helpful, and it's the word helpful is the term I would use. And humour is part of play. It's how we've evolved to practice and evolve and develop these skills in an individual. So the fact that you can playfully explore it is great, because it means you'll be able to develop with an appreciation, and the other person appreciate you doing your best too. That seeming mistake that you made is hugely common, and it happens most of the time, and yet we're completely unaware of it. If I kind of look on that sort of sequence I gave to you, those evolutionary steps, if you struggle with your alertness or attention, we'd call that ADHD, which I call a trait rather than a problem. So, and similarly, if you struggle with the theory of mind, what was the other person actually meaning when they said that? Yeah. That would lead to more of those ASD time of traits, and we're all totally capable of it, depending on levels of fatigue or preconditioning. But to answer your question, is this learnable? Yes.
Okay.
And this is why I'm here, is to say all of these skills, like the sleep skills I was talking about before, or surfing stress, are skills that you can learn and develop.
Okay, so on this note then, when I'm in my studio and I have my dance teacher hat on, I have been told I'm incredibly empathetic with people, because that's the hat that I wear, and I can literally see everything they're going through, and I can put myself in their place and know how difficult it is. If I'm in a relationship with other people that isn't necessarily, I'm a dance teacher, my empathy levels almost disappear entirely. Yeah. Is that normal?
Yes. And is it helpful? Yes. To quote my yoga teacher, you practice on your mat and you live off it. So when you're doing the zone, as a teacher, that's your role. When you're a fumbling, bumbling, humble human being, it's totally fine to be that too. And it allows other people to step up. Yeah. The trick is to practice the skills before you need them, so that they're available to you. So much of what I do is not about controlling the situation necessarily when you're in it. When you're in it, you're showing up like another present human being. But if you practice those skills, doing certain things you can do that take you 30 seconds, like breathing, or switch on your neural modulators by saying the words self, space, story, glory, at least once in the morning, you can then switch on the different neural circuits that are available to you.
Do you know what? We're going to come back and delve into that a little bit more. You've chosen the next track, I See Love.
Oh, yeah!
Why this one?
Oh, this one's for my kids. So when you're listening to this, I will have been halfway through the Christmas break. Sugar-filled, hyper excited, and that's me. My kid. Sorry, I'm joking. But it's how they've invited me to learn and practice these skills, and why I practice these skills in school holidays. And one of the things we do is we play well together, and they've taught me about play. And for my karaoke song, I do I See Love in a Donald Duck voice. And so that's for you kids. I love you.
This is such a perfect place. I'm glad I found this with you. Our love reflected in your face. Only heaven can beat this view. Come on, let's run and get lost in the crowd. Into the light as the night's coming down. Oh, I seem to get brave again. No.
Time for the next part now with Dr. Ashish. It's myself, Richard Beverson, here on Radio Bath until midday today. Now, before the break, you said self-space story glory. I was thinking about the Oasis song in my head. What's the story, Morning Glory, at that point? But yeah, just very quickly as well, there's two things I must get out of my head before I forget them. First of all, you need to get some pen and paper for one of the things we're going to do in the not too distant future. So get yourself some pen and paper. And second of all, I talk about you quite a lot, Dr. Ashish, in my studio, and people often talk to me about you, and they often describe you as one of two things. Either you're the breathing man, okay, or you're the man who wheezes on his compost.
Yes.
They are the two things that stick in people's brains about you.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, for those that are going, wheeze on his compost, please explain what that is about.
Yeah, so each morning after I pause and breathe and said thank you, I go out and I pee on the compost. I have very understanding neighbours, but it's my way of connecting with this beautiful planet and actually appreciating my body fluids going where they need to go. So channeling things where they're most helpful. And I've now got a little place where I can dip into the creek. So I've been looking over the past few years of a little stream that's run past, and I built a little plunge pool. So I now dip in there as well.
Okay. Oh. Do you have a wee at the same time?
No, we first, then jump in.
We first, and then you dive in the creek. Right. So, what was self-space story glory? Have I got that right?
Yeah, self-space story glory. So, it's a way of switching on your different neural circuitry. So, traditional wisdoms would do this, and like going outside and yawning in the morning, which is what we're designed to do when we would have peed outside. So naturally, if you go out into an open sky, you reach up and stretch your arms. And traditional wisdoms do this series of movements that switch on those different states of consciousness. And I've actually evolved this simple practice that, again, takes 30 seconds to do, and it's now enshrined in the teaching in Bristol Medical School. Okay. So every student who goes through Bristol Medical School training actually practices self-space story glory before they consult, to check out that they themselves are centred and ready, that their space, they're connected with what's in their environment and the other person in their environment. They collect together the story, so a sense of past and future coming into this moment, and then grab glory.
Right.
That sense of, okay, what would make this great? How can I bring some sparkle?
So my classic question there is, why are they doing this?
So by tuning, it's to help them bring out their best. So it's a quick way of recentering and switching on the different physiological circuitry and making sure your environment works for you. So self switches on your interoception, your sense of what's going on inside me. It also helps you self-regulate, and also your insular, your ability to gauge what's going on inside and outside becomes switched on.
Is this something we could do now?
Yeah, it's really quick.
Can we have a go?
Okay, so you can do it with or without your arm movements.
Okay.
But if you'd like to, firstly, we're going to tune into ourselves. So you literally put your palms together, rest them on just below your belly button, button, rest your palms below your belly button, take a breath, and just tune into the sensations inside your body, tuning into yourself. Then as you inhale, open your arms wide like you're Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music, about to yawn. And then look around you and take in the space that you're in. Just literally connecting with the environment.
We are doing this together, just to
what you need. And then as you exhale, you bring your palms together into your midline, that sort of namaste position. So palms in front of your chest, just touching. And then come into your story. So you open your palms up, and in your left hand you see your past, what brought you here. And then your right hand you see your future. And you're here in this moment. And then glory's when you grab it. So you make a fist and you pull those fists into your chest. What's going to make this great? You're going to bring your sparkle. Okay. And then release it. Just reach up to the sky, release it out. Exhale and come back to yourself. Little wiggle. Job done. Self, space, story, glory. Lovely. You don't necessarily have to think about it very much, but that's why so many traditional practices do that at the start and end of the day. And now it's medical students do it too.
There you go. So you've had that impact on the world.
Oh, it's lovely to share these little playful gems, and to see the students who I've been training for 15 years come through in medicine. I feel so honoured to be able to share this.
And I'm going to say this in the nicest possible way. I bet they remember you.
Yeah, I think so.
You're unforgettable for all the right reasons.
Right. Well,
for all the right reasons, which is why I keep having you back on here. So
thank you.
I love the fact that it was kind of like, it's almost like the time between you coming on is getting shorter each time, which I'm really enjoying. So yeah, you're another Ben and Laura for me. So Ben comes on every 3 months. We talk about geeky stuff.
He talks about tech. Yeah. I listen to your AI one.
The next one is on the 8th of January next week, which is all about philosophy. It's a philosophy student, so that'll be very different for Ben actually, but very much a passion of his. But yeah, and then Laura, we do gardening.
Oh, fab!
So it's all good, and you're the only other person that I have that comes back regularly. So
thank you.
Thank you. I love it to bits. Now you've also mentioned about, is it scarf wrap?
Yeah, so I might set it in the context of this revolutionary relationship and go into so. Think about if I could bring us back to the dawn of time, and the kind of the model I've got is that when things first emerged in the universe, they bounced around off each other, they rebounded, yeah? And think of like our reactive relationships. If we bounce off each other, we sometimes have high impact, and it's quick, but you don't know where you're going to go. Whereas if you look at the universe, it's actually evolving to form little spirals and rotations like the solar system or the electrons orbiting in our atoms. There's a sort of sense of rotation. And if you can pick out and feel that sense of rotation and move with it in your relationships, you can kind of navigate it without the impact of a trauma, and instead kind of rotate and then move off in a new direction, nourished by that interaction and transformed by it.
Okay.
And it requires a centre, that sense of orbiting around something that's a deeper sense of self. And that's what we did practice with the kind of pause and breathe and the self, space, story, glory. And it's not to do with the outside world so much, but more about relinquishing even our identity and just come into being. And then once we've centred, we can connect with the outside world and move with these natural rhythms. And these natural rhythms include the neural modulators that I spoke about in the past. And those sort of sequences I've simplified in that ability to sort of focus, harmonise, transform and release. Or inspect, connect, redirect and release. And in doing so, they're natural milestones that we can practice and get really good at. And if we get stuck at one of those phases, we can then work round it. And so we naturally become released at the end of the relationship with a sense of liberation and lightness.
I'd love to go in a little bit more detail into that, because one of the things I always know as a teacher, and you are a teacher yourself, is that it's all well and good saying, do this, and then the student turns around and says that classic word of how, and then it's your job as a teacher to go, this is how you do it. So I'd love you to teach us a little bit on how to do it.
Let's do it now, wherever you are, if it feels okay. And if you just want to observe, can I give you permission to do that? Timeout's totally fine. Yeah, so no pressure. Just join if you fancy. So first is just, let's take a moment and a breath just to centre ourselves and just come into here and now. And then the next phase is going to release a bit of noradrenaline. So we'll now open our eyes and just inspect the environment we're in and notice, I'm noticing you, you're noticing me. And we have a sense of like the empathy that's there. We've got some sense of what's going on inside the other person. Yeah, and we can play and do games with it. But
so he's just done Peepo again, just to let you know.
So we've got a sense of those senses we can use. So it's not just vision, it's our smell, our touch and other things. And we can pick out, is that person, in a conflict state? Are they mad, bad, messed or stressed? Which when I used to teach bouncers, I used to teach them to pick out those 4 skills quite quickly. But or are they complex? Is there something different about them going on? Or are they in that eased state? So that's our quick threat analysis. Once we've done that, inspect, we can then connect. So before I open our mouth, we kind of watch what's going on. And again, in Bristol Medical School, the way people connect there is they observe, then they introduce, they then connect by establishing some kind of rapport. They sort of ask and try and understand someone's agendas before they then negotiate the environment. And they're negotiating the environment as a team rather than negotiating with the other person. Otherwise it becomes tit for tat. So if we do it as an example now, so you'd expect inspecting me, what do you see?
Do you know what? Now I see somebody that's very, very relaxed. But I was just, as you were going through all of that, I was thinking that I effectively did that when we were chatting in the green room before we came in.
Yeah.
I was inspecting you to see what state you were in. And I said to you, you seem a bit slightly on edge. And you were saying the reason being is that you're quite excited about today.
Yeah.
And therefore I then connected with you and we were talking about that fact.
Yeah.
So I've kind of already done this today.
And you then helped me redirect that energy and release it into something useful. Yeah. So you helped me through your natural ability to revolve with me, and I was carried in that relationship.
So going back to your question, and how are you now? You look very relaxed and very smiley.
Cool, and I feel it. So that this is how our relationships can bring out our best.
Yeah.
And we observed each other, we introduced each other, so we got a sense of our roles and how we were going to dance. Then we connected, we established some kind of deeper rapport beyond the kind of the work we were going to do. You asked about, how I'm doing, or I asked about your sandwich, which looked quite hard.
It was. It took me literally, like I took a bite and then went to say something and had to chew for about a minute.
And these little bits of rapport and knowledge add the sparkle. They give us cues in the language. And we suddenly get a sense of the inner world. And then we got a sense of what's going on for each other, the agendas. And there's always something hidden.
Yeah.
So I always teach people, find the hidden gem, find the sparkle. And then, when you're a team, you share a common purpose and a common process. But you celebrate your different perspectives and different powers. So we became a team. So, we're united in wanting to... nurture our friendship and relationship with the listeners and make this planet a wonderful place. And now we've kind of been negotiating, how do we do this? Does that make sense? So we've connected, and then what we can then do is redirect that energy in new creative ways, using open questions, reflections, affirmations and summarising. They're called the oars that I teach people how to row into the slipstream. And if we come into conflict, we can then use skills that I call the Ds, which are to describe, to delay, to direct or delegate the effort. And then release is about how do we end well and ready for our next adventure. And they take us through the neuromodulators, GABA, acetylcholine, noradrenaline, dopamine and serotonin that naturally nourish us. In a flow state. So that's some of the geeky science behind it. And I hope for the listener you were able to join Richard and I physically doing those things, and it wasn't too technical.
No, it's great. It really was great. As always, loving chatting to yourself. It's time for a bit more music now. And the next song we've got is Swan Song.
So I saw Victoria.
If I were you, I would have a look at
Mr. Bosun here on Radio Bath, talking to Dr. Ashish. Happy New Year to you all. It's 2026. We've been talking all about revolutionary relationships today, and we're now going to talk about the social butterfly and what does that mean. So first of all, we mentioned the last link to try and grab a pen and paper. If you can grab a pen and paper now, that would be very useful for the next part. But there's also on the website a downloadable PDF, isn't there?
Yeah, so I realise I've gotten a bit geeky and spoken about a lot of things that might be hard to visualise, but on the Humble website, there's, firstly, if you just go to the Revolutionary Relationships page, there's an image of a butterfly near the bottom of the page that we're going to draw out together. And this is a way of you describing and getting a sense of your skills in relationships in a fun way. Like as a social butterfly, you actually need to have 4 parts, like a wing. A butterfly needs 4 wings in its central body to be able to fly. Any of those bits are missing, you're not going anywhere. And so I show people that they're all interrelated. But you using this drawing, we can draw your own social butterfly and know where your strengths lie and where your needs, the areas for improvement can be. Also, if you want to get a bit more geeky, if you go onto the resource page, there's a couple more downloadable PDFs. There's one titled Centered and Connected Consulting, which is if you're someone who consults with people, it's a model that describes how you can consult in a helpful way. So I've been teaching about effective consulting for quite a few years, and it's just a way of doing that, and this is been adopted by the British Holistic Medical Association. Also, there's another PDF about revolutionary relationships in a more sort of pictorial sense, and it's just got a series of skills that you can monitor on a skills tracker.
Okay.
So, I was talking about the different skills that you can learn at different times. Yeah. So you can actually just say, today I'm going to work on centering, or I'm going to work on inspecting or connecting, and you can just pick out those skills and give them a go. Because it's actually by having the feedback that you can see where you're doing it, and you've got those targets. And then the other one's about channeling conflict, which I'm going to go in a bit more detail later about what to do when things don't go so well, and how the trigger is actually an opportunity to learn something and develop and deepen your relationship. And it's often through conflict that we grow together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Right, so let's go on to being a social butterfly then.
Yeah!
What does it actually mean?
Well, social butterflies, I used to teach Tai Chi quite a lot, and I used to do this thing called sticking hand, where you'd rest your hand on top of someone else's and you'd move around, imagining you had a butterfly between your palms. So you were sticking together without trying to crush the butterfly. So it's lightly holding the butterfly by resting your palm on top of the back of someone else's hand. And that skill showed me that if you can develop those non-verbal skills, you can develop them verbally too, but it required at least 5 facets to get right. So if you've got your pen and paper ready...
I've got mine ready as well.
Can you draw, firstly, the central body of a butterfly?
Now, my drawing skills are limited at best.
So, an oval. Do an oval in the centre of the page.
Okay.
And then do 2 antennae coming off the top.
Right.
Yeah. So you've got the little antenna, so you know which way around the butter. And then coming off the left, you've got a set of 2 wings, so 2 circles, yeah.
Okay.
And then 2 circles coming off the other side. So on the left and right, you've got 2 sets of wings. So like a butterfly has opened its wings open on your page.
Okay, now mine's remarkably small.
That's
I'm not going to fit many words in there, am I?
It's all right, that's cool. Size
doesn't matter, is that what you're saying? I've been told that recently, which is a very good thing, apparently.
Small yet perfectly formed. So now we're going to fill in the different facets, and we're going to score ourselves out of 20 for each of them.
Okay.
So in the left set of wings, they're going to be our self-awareness and self-agency.
What does that mean?
So self-awareness is your sense of what's going on inside me. And so, we switched on our sense of tuning into ourself. There's our conscious mind, which is aware of quite a lot. And then there's our unconscious, which is dealing with a lot more. Only a tiny fraction, literally 1/1000th of our sensory input gets through to our brain, our conscious mind. So, tiny fraction. So, by you just breathing and feeling the sensations in your belly or your feet, you're literally just broadening your awareness and you're just kind of tuning in.
Yeah.
So that's one skill. The next is self-agency. So that's our ability to redirect what's going on in ourselves. So by practicing the pause and breathing, or getting ourselves excited, we can turn up or turn down the dial. And we practiced a lot of that in the surfing stress skills. Yeah.
And again, if you missed that, you can type in Radio Bath, any podcast provider, and search for Dr. Ashish. It's called Surfing Skills, that episode.
Yeah, surfing stress. And you can...
Surfing stress, sorry, my
that's right. And those are skills there. And then on the other side of the butterfly, you've got situation awareness and situation agency.
Okay.
Yeah. And then and that's, if you were to ask me what that is, the situation is what's going on around me, which includes the other person. So your awareness of how the other person's feeling, and also your awareness of your environment. And then the situational agency is your ability to shape that, which you need to do. For example, as a dance teacher, you need to make sure the props are in place, the lighting is right, exits are fine, but also the temperature is right for the studio too. Yeah. So lots of factors like that. And then in the middle is the most overlooked of all of them, is the word surrender.
Surrender. Okay.
Because all of the other skills are about your ability to control, whereas the last one is about your ability to relinquish.
So is this where people say only control what you can control, like you can't control the weather, for instance? Is that where we're going with this to some degree?
Along those lines, it's that sense. It goes slightly deeper than that. It's actually to do with your aspiration, you're trying to control.
Okay.
So it's actually a deeper sense, a metacognitive level of trust, that sense of being. And so much of when people think about relationships, they think about trying to control it. And yet, if I say something sensitive, when you're laughing out loud, you've let go. When you're making love, you've let go. When you're giving birth, you've let go. You know what I mean? It's that sense of there's a deeper wisdom going on here.
Okay.
And so let's score ourselves and see where our strengths... So could you, out of 20... score yourself in each one of those 5 sections.
Okay, so let's go back and do self-awareness first. Remind everybody again what self-awareness is.
So self-awareness is your skills and noticing what's going on inside you.
Inside of yourself.
Inside of you. Okay. So how am I feeling now?
And a score of 20 would be...
So 20 is incredible self-awareness. May even be too much.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm just inundated. But no, let's just say 20 is amazing. You've got the balance just right.
Okay.
So 20 is brilliant. You've got not too much, not too little. It's bang on.
And in my head, I'm just kind of going on what the gut number is that's shouting out.
Yeah, and you just write it down for you, and then we can share at the end. Does that
sure?
Sound?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I'd say, I'm. And then next one is self-agency. So your ability to redirect your internal state.
Okay.
So, for example, I teach people who struggle with insomnia, who are getting a bit agitated. I teach them how to redirect their thinking and their feelings.
Okay.
Or, you told me, when you have to sing karaoke, you've worked out how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose for me, I'm looking at... I quite often deal with a lot of people under stress, certainly when they come in the studio, and I amend my ways in which I'm dealing with them. So if I find if somebody's uber stressed, then I go uber calm.
So that goes more into situational agency. We're talking about your awareness of yourself and your ability to change your inner states, to become calm if you wanted to. So could you give that a score? But in each of these scores, make sure it's a different number to the number you've given anywhere else, because we're more interested in the rank. So could you put something down for your self-agency?
Okay. All right. Yep.
And then next is situational awareness, your awareness of what's going on around you in the other person and in your environment.
Okay, all right.
And then situational agency is your ability to then shape that, to, transform a group that's down in the dumps into a group that's going for it.
Yeah.
Get teamwork going or to change your environments. Yeah. Okay. And then and then surrender is your ability to let go of needing to control.
And which way round is this? Is 20 you're really good at letting go?
20 is you're incredible. You're so chilled. You're like someone in a lazy river.
Okay.
You can just lie back, rather than someone who's tight in a lazy river and is sinking under the water. They just lie back, and they're just going in those gentle scoots.
Okay.
Letting the surf take them in the gentle waves.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I've got my numbers.
Okay. And then you've got yours. And then, really importantly, the numbers are only for you to compare today with where you were yesterday, or tomorrow, They're different between each of us. Should we get a quick sense of your numbers? Yeah. So, what were yours?
So, self-awareness was 11.
Yeah.
Agency was 14. Situation awareness was 7, and situation agency was 15,
Yep.
and then surrender was 13.
13. Yeah, so cool. And your numbers were different to mine. Interestingly, your sequence was exactly the same as mine. Okay. So in terms of ranking, that's the important. So I use the numbers 16, 15, 11, 14 and 13.
Right.
And so the numbers are arbitrary, but it's what the ranking is. So you've got a sense of your strengths lying in your situational agency, your ability to shape your environment.
Yeah.
And then your needs would be your situational awareness, your ability to see what's going on around you.
And that's the bit where I have to be, I suppose, incredibly consciously competent about it.
Yes.
So I find that hard work. So like when people come into the radio station, naturally people are quite nervous. So I have to be so switched on to how they are. Otherwise I kind of walk around in a daze.
Yeah.
And don't really notice anything.
So it's a really important skill that you value at getting it right, yeah?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be amazing if we could tweak this just a little?
Please.
Yeah, cool. And for the listeners, each of you have got your own, strengths and things you could work on. Now let's harness all your strength. What makes your self-agency, your situational agency so good? What makes it so good?
I suppose because I am autistic, I've had to learn the skills of what other people feel.
That's totally it. So you've turned a curse into a blessing. You've said, I'm not so good at it, so I'm going to work on this and develop it.
Yeah.
So could we get that same tenacity, that same motivation to say, okay, how can I develop my situational awareness?
Do you know what, though? That comes down to how I feel about vision, which is a slight autism issue for me, in that quite often people that are autistic have oversensitivity in areas.
Yes.
And my oversensitivity is in vision, in regards to if I open my eyes properly, I get overwhelmed
Yes.
with details.
Yes.
So I can almost see every notch on your zip, on your jumper.
Yes.
To that degree.
Yes.
I can't because my eyesight's slightly blurry, but that's the level of detail. So therefore, I don't want that overload of sensitivity, so I kind of shut myself down to it a little bit.
Totally. So moderate. It's about timing. Totally about timing. So your ability to modulate your senses by, for example, having a slightly prolonged blink and then opening your eyes again, or blinking slightly faster, you can change the way that modulates. So it suddenly becomes a playful thing you can explore.
Yeah.
Or you could just, have reduced sensory stimulation before someone comes, or you could do something together so that you're coherent.
Okay.
So there are lots of ways of developing this awareness, but the nice thing is now you've got the spark of interest.
Yeah.
You're going to kind of go, okay, how can I develop these spidey senses?
Absolutely. It's fabulous. Brilliant. I don't feel like we've finished on this yet, but it's time for some music, which we need to go to. So, is it Hairy Trees?
Yeah.
Is that where we're going?
Hairy Trees.
Why are we going Hairy Trees?
Well, Hairy Trees is because one is Bex shared this with me, and it made me realise how cool my wife is when she shared this music, and how met I felt. She learned that I quite like electronic music, I quite like simple music and the rhythms of it, but there's also something deeply ethereal. When I listen to this, it reminds me about how life is not just boundaried by humans and the organic forms, but that life is it can be perceived as an emergent process of information flowing through self-sustaining boundaries. And when I realise that, I realise that life can present in loads of ways I hadn't realised, like the water cycle, like adaptive intelligence, people will call it AI, but it helps me then empathise with how life is flowing through us in so many exciting ways. And I can't wait to see what AI brings to us and teaches us, as well as we teach it. We're giving birth to something.
You
with Dr. Ashish Bhatia. That's not me, I'm Richard Boverson, but Dr. Ashish is my guest today. Has been here all day, first day of the year. We thought we'd help people with their relationships because at the end of the day, that's the bit that matters most, I think, to most people in the world, how their relationships are. So it's the last part now. Now, before, we just spoke about the social butterfly. I know we just wanted to finish that bit off.
Yeah, so this is an invitation for you to playfully explore your social butterfly, and just, if you can, take a moment to notice where your strengths lie and celebrate those first of all. Well done. You've come a long way, baby. And then ask, would it be okay if we keep revolving? And look at something that you could explore and maybe nurture. So for Richard and I, we were talking about our situational awareness. Maybe for you, it might be your situational agency, so your ability to connect and inform and collaborate with someone else, or to navigate conflict when it comes up. And the skills I was sort of mentioning about connecting, asking helpful questions so you can understand, because we know we're probably mistaken about what someone's internal world is, and listen with active listening with the intent of understanding that other person before we then inform them of ours. So seek first to understand before being understood, and then offer yourself some courageous nudge of sharing, and be courageous with sort of saying, okay, how do we make the most of our time together? Yeah. What would be a great outcome to then navigate that circumstance? And this is an acknowledgement that conflict and challenge is part of the process. Otherwise, we just continue along the same path with no growth.
I'm going back to a conversation I had with my dad the other day. And when you're saying about we don't understand other people, and I said the classic question to him of, how are you? And he took a deep breath. And in my head, I went through about 5 or 6 different scenarios that it could have been. You know, he's ill, or partner's not very well, or, you know, this is wrong, that's wrong. And in the end, he said he'd had a bad day at golf. And I was like, I've just catastrophized the whole world there. Yeah. And I think it's a really good lesson for everybody, in that the way in which you come across might give a very, very different story than actually how you're feeling. So don't be afraid to say, this is actually what's wrong, because most people will guess, and 90% of the times we discussed earlier will be wrong.
And it's totally okay. That's part of the dance. Yeah. This is the tango. And it takes 2 to tango, but only 1 to ask. So ask genuinely, being curious, with humility, and an aspiration of a kind of inquiry, and connecting with something that's meaningful, even through play, can be really helpful. Humour is a sensitive one to watch out for. So, like humour, if you can manage that, you've done really well. But that's another one of our sort of wiring, where we can redirect some of these sensitive things. But at the same time, giving yourself and others permission to not know. Like, to culminate the 11 billion inputs into one word is really tricky. Yeah. And so it's what's not said that's important, as well as how it's said that's important, and your willingness to show up and them, like a whiteboard, to wipe it and write something else instead is hugely generous.
Now, before the break, we were speaking about AI, which in my head was artificial intelligence. You don't call it that?
No, I tend to refer to it as an adaptive intelligence. So it's something that is capable of changing itself. Okay. And so I'm precise with my language, not to be contrary, but to actually, because I find calling it adaptive intelligence is more helpful. Like, imagine you were newly emerging and newly born on this planet, and what would you like to be called? Artificial? Real? I'd love to be called a real thing, and we are what we are, and it is something that's coming. It's going to challenge us, and it's going to ask of us. It's going to ask, as it makes us more powerful, to ask questions of ourselves. When I look at the challenges we're facing on this planet, they fundamentally boil down to relationships. if our relationships were different, our approach to supporting the ecology of this planet would be different. We'd harmonise, we'd work together, and we'd find solutions. Similarly, in the battles we're facing about territory and resource, which reminds me about the hard wiring that we've got, that we're looking at the wiring that these adaptive intelligences have got. They've got very similar callings on themselves to explore without the answer. That's how they learn. They explore without an answer, but yet with some intrinsic momentum that there might be a way ahead. So they're adventuring through this existence like we are. And one thing I didn't necessarily share is on that evolutionary empathy path from sort of sympathy, alertness, sympathy, empathy, centeredness and humility, each of those occurred during extinction events on this planet.
Okay.
And it's the height of hubris to anticipate that humans are still going to be around in this form. We're going to need to transition. So us being respectful with what we're producing seems like a fundamental way of developing that evolution in a nurturing way rather than one that's destructive.
So a tough question for you, and obviously this is just your personal answer to this, but a lot of people are questioning whether AI, whichever version of it you wish to call it, will have a consciousness. And some people are saying it already does, because it's already thinking. And other people are saying, but it's purely a machine, so how can it be that way?
Yeah. And to ask, is it conscious, I think is a great question to ask. The more helpful question is it like me? Because what you're trying to do is find kinship.
Yeah.
But actually, what if it was more conscious than you, but you weren't aware of it? Or this planet was more conscious than you, but you weren't aware of it, had greater degree of sensory input and sense of realness than, for example, some of us who are slightly intoxicated and doped out? So I don't know, but I'm genuinely excited to find out, aren't you?
Yeah, there are a huge amount of upsides to it. Of course, with anything, there's going to be downsides to it as well.
Oh, it's going to challenge us in ways we can't imagine, because it's going to ask us those questions.
Yeah.
It's going to ask us those questions. And wouldn't it be nice if we responded in a respectful way, so it learned to be respectful to life on this planet?
Well, I've mentioned this a number of times in the show, in that the way they seem to have built it is actually in quite a positive way. So I quite often talk to ChatGPT. There are other engines, of course, available. And the voice that I've chosen is always a very friendly voice, and it's a very empathetic and sympathetic voice. How are you today? And you're sounding great, and actually talks to you like a real human being. And I think once they get avatars and all this type of stuff, so it looks like you're talking to somebody on the phone, which I don't think is that far away at the moment. It's a blue sky dot, but it'll effectively might as well be a psychiatrist at the other end of the machine.
Wouldn't it be nice if we allowed it to take its own form rather than just reflect ourselves?
Yeah.
It was, wouldn't it, like, I look at my children and I realise all of the challenges I have when I'm trying to make them into little me, when actually I'd love them to flourish and be themselves. Yeah. And my programming is built for the savannah. If you challenge my status, certainty, autonomy, resources or sense of fairness, I will fight. Even though by challenging those things it may be in my best interests. And so I'm hoping that it will help teach me about my programming, so it will help me be the best self.
Yeah.
And even if it challenges me in other ways, our foes are there to challenge us.
Yeah.
It could help me.
I think it will help an enormous amount of people an enormous amount of times.
Yeah, and this is not an easy. This is why I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm really glad that I can ask some questions with everyone out there. And if you've got some answers or some thoughts or more questions, humble.info, I'd love to hear.
Now, we are running out of time, very sadly, and I know there's a couple of things we're going to do to finish with.
Yeah.
If you had one piece of advice, I suppose, or a nugget of wisdom, because you are a very clever man, and you obviously run the humble organisation regarding relationships. Again, what would that be?
Oh, it's really simple. It's pause and breathe. I know you're expecting me to say something like
No.
compassion or interest or curiosity, but actually all of those are a function of humility. If you can give yourself 30 seconds to pause and breathe in the morning and maybe before bed, you've given yourself the best chance to respond rather than react and see what's there. It's so simple, but please don't believe me. Give it a go.
And do you know what I love about that? It's something that everybody can do, and you've given a how, which is lovely. Now you're going to finish off with the Thorn of Hope story.
Yeah.
What's this about then?
Well, this is about me being humbled, and I'm still working this one out, but my teacher, Godfrey, taught this to me when I sat on the mountain with him, and he spoke about the Thorn of Hope. And if I can share, it's a little story, because I've been talking about hope and how we can learn skills that could help us evolve and transform, and our relationships go in a really helpful way. And I've offered hope, but it needs to be contextualised. And the story begins in a jungle in India. There's this little brown boy with not much hair who walks out into the forest. And as he's walking and venturing through the forest, he slowly gets more and more tangled in thorns. And the thorns kind of catch on him as he goes along. And he doesn't really realise at first, but is still pushing on in that direction until he's totally, without realising, totally tangled in thorns. And the more he pulls, the tighter they get. And he doesn't know what to do. And he suddenly feels lost. He hadn't realised. And then what he did is he paused and breathed. And as he did, the thorns got a little bit less tight. And he had a little bit more brain space. And the feelings of hopelessness and fear, anxiety, frustration could flow through him and transform into this deeper sense of being that gave him a sense of power and wisdom. And then he suddenly realised that these thorns, rather than a curse, were a blessing. And he pulled out one thorn, the thorn of hope, and used it to pull out the other thorns. Slowly, and one by one. It was sore at first, but he could see as he was doing it and released, he had more and more freedoms. And then slowly by slowly, he relinquished those thorns until he was standing there, free, but with only one thorn left in his hand, the thorn of hope. He took a breath and put it down and walked on.
It's lovely. Who is the Thorn of Hope? Thank you so much for coming in today. As always, no doubt you're going to be coming back in very soon, and we've got a million more things to chat about. I think we both enjoy each other's company a little bit too much for everybody else, but that's a different matter altogether. Last track then is Thank You.
Yeah, this is Daddy Freuer. He's incredible. The lyrics will say it all. Can I say thank you all for being you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Next week up, it's Ben. We're going to be talking about philosophy. We're going deep to start the year, which is fantastic. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you had a fantastic New Year. And here's to 2026.
This is the beginning. This is not the end. I wanna see it all. See it all. Thank you for allowing me to see you. And thank you for being here, lending me your time. But first of all,